Ready to go? Perfect. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council special meeting for Monday, May 22nd. Short agenda for us tonight, just a couple of items, but before we get there, I call this meeting to order. And if you're able to do so, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, City Clerk. If you could please take roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Councilmember Anderson.
Present.
Councilmember Noonenkamp. Councilmember Russell.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward.
Present.
Councilmember Wink.
Present.
Councilmember Woodward.
Present.
And Mayor Sierra.
Present.
Let the record show 6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4, this is the monthly financial report. We have Director of Finance Jackie Loh here to present our April 2023 financial report. Good evening, Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will review with you the 2023 April General Fund financials by revenues expenditures. Through April 2023, the city's general fund revenues totaled $22.27 million. This amount is 34.6% of budgeted revenues, or $2 million higher than the same time last year. Total revenue year to date is tracking 9.9% higher than the same time last year. Let's take a look at each line item. Through April 2023, the city has received $3.9 million in property taxes. Of that total, $2.28 million went to the general fund, $404,000 went to EDDA, the rest to the debt service for Parks and Rec and police building. And sales use tax remittance totaled $14.95 million and 34.8% budgeted revenues. And the sales use tax revenue is $1.27 million, higher than the same time last year. Of the $1.3 million increase, approximately $1.1 million is due to the 0.3% increase in sales use taxes, and the rest, the difference, but probably $175,000. And the marijuana sales use tax accounts for $500,000 the total sales use taxes year to date, which is $42,000 lower than 2022. Another line item, large line item, franchise fees are higher in 2023 due to increased fees from public service of $90,000 and increase in the waste transfer fee of $35,000. The city increased the waste transfer surcharge from 50 cents to 63 cents in 2023, which is about 26% increase from prior year. And change charges for services are approximately, let me see the total, is much higher than 2022 due to the water and sewer administrative fees that were not implemented until July 2022 of nearly $250,000. The next one, license and permits lines are higher in 2022 due to one large building permit in the amount of $96,000. And investment earnings are $565,000 higher than 2022 due to a rapid rise in interest rates, which result in unrealized losses. You may notice the Fed increased the rate by 25 basis points in May to a range of 5% to 5.25%, the 10th consecutive hike in the past year. This slide shows the historically top revenue sources. This report is based on economic activities happening that month. You can see the top 11 sources for our sales use taxes. This slide is sales use taxes cash received in the past 4 months from 2019 to 2023. This slide shows the total sales tax collected by area. You can see the new business opened and closes. I want to clarify for Area 7, the difference largely due to the business that become licensed and registered, collect, remit sales tax. It doesn't mean they open, close, but they submit their registrations with the city. This is another way to show the sales tax collections by the areas. I want to point out Area 5 in responding to Mayor Pro Tem Ward question about the sales taxes in Area 5. We submit information for final approval. So for the first 3 months, 2023, sales tax revenue in Area 5 is actually up by 19,000 or 9% over 2022 after adjusting the tax increase to 3.8%. The true increase for January through March is actually 38,000 or 18% over 2022. The large decrease is due to one industry. The decrease is consistent with the state and national trend. Let's take a look at expenditures. Expenditures year to date are 24.26 million or 2.2 million higher than the same time last year, equivalent to 11.7%. The majority of the increase is due to the 5% salary increase across different categories, and also for internal billings, for the yearly vehicle maintenance surcharges, that's not the reason why the expenditures variances for police, public works, parks and rec are increased significantly compared to last year. This is another way to review our expenditures by category: personnel, commodities, contractual services, capital. The increase is due to internal service charges and the personnel, 5% increase. And this shows operating surplus and deficit without the one time. The one time, our definition is any extraordinary activity, so it's not a one-time increase from plan review fees. At the end of April 2023, we had an operating surplus of 1 million, very comparable to the same time last year, 900,000. This slide shows the total transfer out from general fund and transfer in. We transfer in 138,000 for the debt for the energy savings project on this building, and transfer out the 1 million for capital projects approved by council as part of a CIP approval process. The 2.1 million is included in budget supplemental number 1 for the Dartmouth Bridge. This is a fund balance composition. You can see net change in fund balance 2 million negative. That includes operating surplus 1 million and a transfer out to public projects. You can see the composition after Tabor, later ARPA funding 360,000, and the stadium, the sales of Bronco Stadium. We have unassigned fund balance of 7.7 million at the end of April. This concludes my presentation tonight. Do you have any questions?
Thank you so much for that, Director Loh. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you. So why is the marijuana sales tax down?
Decreases.
Yes.
It's supply and demand. 2021, we saw increase. Probably we're still under during COVID. 2022 just decreased significantly. It's comparable to the state and national trend.
So is that also the reason for the decrease in Area 5?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for members of council? Seeing none, Director Loh, thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Up next, we have Police Chief Sam Watson and Crime Prevention Community Relations Specialist Crystal Essman here to discuss National Night Out. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening, Sam Watson, Police Chief. Good evening, Mayor and everybody.
You want to turn on your mic, make it green? Now, who are you?
Sam Watson, Police Chief.
Thank
Good
you, Chief.
evening, mayors, members of council. I'm here to talk about National Night Out, which occurs the first Tuesday of August. This year, it's August 1st. Many of you in previous years have attended that, so you're quite aware of the program. The police department would like, first off, I'd like to introduce Crystal Essman. She's our Community Relations Crime Prevention Specialist. Many of you have been to some of her events and seen her around and done a good job. And Madeline Hinkfist, our Neighborhood Resources Program Coordinator, is here as well. So introduce you guys at the very beginning. But we would like City Council direction in potentially changing the format of the National Night Out event by moving the event to a central location at the police department and the Denny Miller Field. Historically, some neighborhoods have hosted block parties that the police officers are invited to. Typically, the city provides free barricades, waived permit fees, and provided additional incentives to up to 26 different neighborhoods. I think last year it was fewer than that. Numerous police officers, firefighters, search and rescue volunteers, and city officials, city manager's office, lots of representation, were scheduled to attend each event, but due to limited resources, each neighborhood did not receive the same types of visits and the same representation, and therefore were underrepresented during that National Night Out. Logistically, the resources needed for this event are great and require a significant amount of coordination. And additionally, the nature of National Night Out for the city has shifted, and our representation in the neighborhoods is enhanced given our relationship with the Neighborhood Resources Program and Neighborhood Nights events. So we propose that the National Night Out be centralized and hosted at the police department and the Miller Field. We can showcase each department within the PD and engage the community with fewer hardships on staff and city resources. So I'd like to introduce now, if I could, Crystal Essman, our Community Relations Crime Prevention Specialist. Mike's still on.
Thank you very much for having me. Really, I just wanted to come and give you guys kind of an outlook. I know most of you have attended National Night Out, but what it had looked like previously, and that was we had last year, and I can only speak to last year, we had 25 officers involved in the entire event, which is, it takes a lot of coordination. And even at that point, for 25 officers, getting officers in the different vehicles, fire, ARP, PD representation at all the events was really taxing, and to the point that last year with staffing the way it was, we were a little concerned we weren't going to hit every single event, and we want to include all of the neighborhoods. And even with the way that the event is held currently, a lot of neighbors aren't necessarily included for various reasons, be it not getting invites, just different cultures within each neighborhood. And so we thought that moving it to the PD would offer a lot of different ways to connect with the community. It's all inclusive. Everybody is invited. We can showcase our beautiful department. We can showcase every single department. It wouldn't just be police, a Bearcat, the fire truck. It would include crime scene. It would include the evidence technician, dispatch. We could do all sorts of different communications and public education there at the PD, as well as an open house, which we didn't hold this year. So that's kind of what we're envisioning. And I know representing the entire city, we would have the opportunity for each neighborhood to have a tent on Denny Miller Field so that the neighbors could go and meet each other at the actual event and network within their own neighborhood and have a district for each, with Madeline in all of the new neighborhoods, and really kind of introducing the new names, Cushing Park, things like that. So that would be our vision for what it would look like at the police department. And some of the things we wanted to highlight that we're already doing within the neighborhoods and neighborhood nights, I'm coordinating with Madeline to make it to every single neighborhood night within each within each neighborhood and talk about crime prevention specifically for that neighborhood. So I'm in the neighborhoods quite often. We do community safety meetings when there is an incident in each neighborhood. We're available. I'm coordinating with a lot of the neighborhoods just generally and getting to know all of the wonderful residents of the city. So that's kind of what we're thinking of moving to, and just kind of wanted to give you a heads up on what the vision is for it. Sorry, presenting in front of council is never fun, so I'm sorry. I'm getting used to it. But do you guys have any questions for me? I'm much better with an interactive crowd, so.
No, thank you very much for that overview, Ms. Essman. Member Woodward, you have your first question.
Okay, historically, I think certainly as the chief is aware, hopefully you're aware, we've had a big turnout for National Night Out with a lot of neighborhoods. And I'm supportive of what you're looking at here. However, there's going to still be some neighborhoods that aren't going to be able to come down to the police department, that sort of thing, whether they're seniors or more community type things. If we have officers out on patrol and stuff, would we encourage them to stop by those neighborhoods at that time? I mean,
On National Night Out,
Correct.
I would think that we would have to transition slowly over the next couple of years, because there are going to be the neighbors that definitely want to have those block parties. They enjoy it, and our officers enjoy going to them. So I know there will be a transition time on, maybe doing a hybrid National Night Out for a year or two. But Madeline and I had also talked about potentially doing some sort of barricade opportunity for neighborhoods so that they still can throw a block party, but maybe not on that Tuesday night, because that's another really hard piece for the neighborhoods is a Tuesday night block party, right? We all have to go to work the next day. And so giving them the opportunity maybe to spread the events out so that we can have police representation and have them go to a different event over the summer and not necessarily just National Night Out. So we had talked about potentially giving some sort of grant or opportunity for neighborhoods to utilize those barricades to shut down their street and still have a block party.
okay, great, thank you.
Member Russell?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. So, currently, does the police department get highlighted during Inglewood Days? They had a party down there, and were there all of these things at Inglewood Days?
So are you talking about Celebrate Inglewood?
Yeah, celebrating.
Yep. So we had a tent, we had the Bearcat there, and then we had a police patrol car as well as the MRU. But that was really the extent of what we had there. It was more of a touch-a-truck, which was a huge success. The community loved, the kids loved getting in the Bearcat always. But it's really hard to pull, what I'm envisioning is setting up like a mock crime scene for the community to come out and, this is how we take pictures and really spend that time in that detail. That's really hard to make it mobile, and we can do that at the police department. Or even a police tour and give people a tour of dispatch so that way they can see when they call 911, this is what to expect, and these are the people that they're talking to, and put a face to the caller on the line. So I think we don't have that opportunity really to highlight all of the departments within the PD when we're mobile. If we have it at the PD and do an open house, we have a little more opportunity to showcase some of the amazing people that we have at the department.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And then will we be weighing in after we're through with questions?
Yes, I believe so, Member Russell.
Okay.
I have one question, and then looks like Member Anderson's next.
All right,
but-
thank you.
Yeah, Member Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Chief and Ms. Essman. My question is just thinking through the history of this in Inglewood. Do we have records of how long we've been doing these neighborhood block parties?
I think longer than we've kept records.
I know, I looked up the National Night Out website, and I know the organization has been in existence since like 1974 or something.
Yes.
So we're coming up on almost 25 or 50 years of the thing existing. I don't know if Inglewood has done it that long.
To answer your question, sir, I believe it's from the early 90s
Okay.
that we were doing that. And it was tied in with the neighborhood watch program very heavily. So although they're
Right.
different
Separate,
programs,
right.
there was a lot of connection through them. So over the years, the involvement in neighborhood watch has shifted substantially, and in a way that we still want to engage the community. We still want to connect to the community. National Night Out is all about connection with the community and the police department. I mean, when you go to their website, that's the
Right.
that's the driving force behind it. So we're looking for the best way to make that connection. And I believe personally, and speaking with Crystal, that there's a better way of doing that from the way we did it started it back in the 90s, which was very successful back then, but it's shifted.
Yeah. And we've done it the same way with neighborhood block parties since it started. This would be the
Yes, sir.
first time we've done it in some different manner.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And to jump on that too, I am speaking with other departments and seeing what they're doing and how they're moving to a centralized versus, block parties, and it's kind of 50-50 on what everybody's doing, and there's pros and cons to both, so.
Ms. Essman, I'm not sure if you all have the question or if this is more of a question for Ms. Hinkfuss, but do we know of any other cities around us that take National Night Out to the level that we're doing?
Yes, so the departments that I've worked with, we're part of a LACOPA, which is a Law Enforcement Community Outreach and Crime Prevention Association. And in the group that I meet with quarterly, and I'm also on the board, so we meet more often. There's several departments, South Metro, that do it this way, Castle Rock being one of them, and they hold it actually at a park, the Miller Activity Center there, and it's huge. So they're able to bring the community to them. So that's one. I've seen Parker Police Department do it both. Arapahoe County is doing kind of a hybrid. So there's a lot of departments that are trying out different things just to try and kind of fill the needs of each individual city and department. So
Thank you for that, Ms. Essman. Any other questions before I open it up for comments? So no further questions. Member Russell, did you want to kick us off, or I can definitely do it, but yeah, I'll start off. So I appreciate you bringing this forward, Ms. Essman and Police Chief Watson. I completely understand in terms of just the limited resourcing and some of the challenges that our force is experiencing with National Night Out. But what I do feel is a benefit for National Night Out, at least the way that Inglewood has done it in years past, is that it does bring kind of like the small town kind of aspect to for this event to Inglewood. And at least for the ones that we've attended, I know Police Chief, you've attended some of these with me. Like we're bringing police and fire to the neighborhoods, and I've always seen a lot of small children at these events, and I'm a little bit worried about centralizing this event may potentially impact some of the families that we're seeing in the neighborhoods having to take their kids to Miller Field. One of the benefits of being close to home is that you can easily just with a small child take them to bed, or if they have to use the restroom. That's probably the biggest issue, is that you always have to be close to a restroom. But I kind of like that aspect of it. So I completely understand it if we need to scale it back for resourcing purposes. And we can make that decision on a nightly, based on that night, if there's any resources that need to be made available for other things. But I really like the way that we're kind of doing it now. If there's a need to change it in the future, then we could definitely look at that route. But at this point, I love to keep it the same if possible. So my preference would be to keep it as is, and obviously we can work in terms of resourcing, scaling it back when we need to. Police Chief. Anyone else? Go ahead, Member Anderson.
I think Mayor Pro Tem had his.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I concur with the mayor. I'll note that I represent a council district which tends to be pretty averse to change. So making this change this year without warning at the event that is set to occur this year, I think would be very difficult for a lot of the neighbors, particularly the neighbors who live very close to me who've done this event for decades now. It comes off well for them. It's enjoyable for the neighborhood. It's the one night a year when we see people in the neighborhood meeting each other because of the close proximity they have to each other. which I think is one of the things that we would lose if we make this event more centralized, is that that group of neighbors in close physical proximity to each other getting together in the street, in the neighborhood. I'm willing to discuss this further, but this isn't really a change that I would like to see happen this year. I think we need to give some warning to the community and perhaps talk to the neighbors at the event this year when we go out, if we do go out, about what they think about this change. Because ultimately, the purpose of any of these activities is to serve the community. And we want to do that in a way that they find acceptable.
Member Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I feel similarly to Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem on this. Though hearing you talk about the benefits of doing this, I do think that there are some things there that would benefit the community in a way that going to the neighborhoods doesn't. But I do think for me the benefits of being out in the neighbor and encouraging people to like own their own block parties and to have kids on those streets with a fire truck that shows up. I know they don't make it out to every or fire truck or Bearcat or whatever that shows up. I think that's a really special experience for those kids to have it just right there on their street. And also just for neighbors to really connect directly with their direct neighbors is really important as well. So I'd like to keep this the same. But I do appreciate the thought that went into this, and I know you guys are working really hard to make the community connections, and I hate to see how this burdens the police department. Hopefully we can get the staffing up to where it's not quite as much of a burden as it was. And I'm, as the mayor said, if we're spread too thin and we have to, not every party gets a visit from, every different police department or every year gets that visit, then I totally understand that. We got to take those staffing levels into consideration as well. But my preference would be to keep it as it is.
Member Russell and then Member Woodward.
Thank you. I totally understand that, but I will tell you, I've been on council, this will be my 8th year. And going to the block parties all over the city, it is what connects each neighborhood to themselves, and the people love it. And I understand. I think perhaps if it's something that you want to highlight the police department, that we could make that totally separate from National Night Out and do that at a different time. And I think originally when we were doing this at the beginning of my 8 years, officers, if they were out on patrol, they would stop by, they could get dinner or whatever. And if there were no resources, they didn't come. But I agree with all that's been shared already. Inglewood is only 6.5 square miles. And the people do need to connect with each other. And I mean, like last year I went to one that was down at, I believe it was Rotolo Park. Well, no, it wasn't Rotolo Park. There's a park on Stanford and I don't know, down about Galapago, whichever park it is. And that lady has been doing it since 1974, and she has scrapbooks and pictures of all of the neighbors since that period in time. And those connections, I don't want to stop those. We need those connections in this city. So I appreciate that, but I think maybe there's a way we could do something that's separate from National Night Out to highlight the police department, but also keep National Night Out the way it is. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Member Woodward.
Thank you. I've been involved with the Neighborhood Watch. I still have my 1994 block captain badge that I can
You're
carry
dating yourself,
around.
Member Woodward.
Huh?
You're dating yourself.
Yeah. I'm not.
The 90s isn't that long ago.
No, that's only, 30 years ago. But, I mean, the block parties are a big thing, but I think both of these things could be done, if not now, certainly in the future. And I understand what you're trying to do with this. I know the block parties, they are important, although I believe back in the 90s, the early 2000s and stuff, we probably had more block parties than now, by quite a bit. I mean, it's when we had the governor come down in his helicopter because we were the top city in the state for the program and stuff. But I think, I don't know, I think both of those could be done at the same time, because there's some neighborhoods that will not come down to the police station, and they're going to do their same thing all the time, and things change. So I'm supportive of moving forward with this, if not now, later.
Thank you very much, Member Woodward. Anyone else? Chief, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Thank you for the dialogue. Thank you, Ms. Essman, as well, for the conversation tonight. Anything else, Privilege Chief?
Yeah, thank you for the direction. I really appreciate that and the conversation. I would like to just mention a couple things. There was a comment about how it's a burden to us, and it's absolutely not a burden to us when we're out there on National Night Out. It's our pleasure to be out there in the community. It's definitely not a burden. And as far as scaling back, we're all in, right, Crystal? I mean, we'll stick with the plan, we'll stick with the status quo, and we're all in, and every year is going to be just that much better. And I just wanted to make those my closing comments. So thank you very much for your
I
time.
appreciate that, Police Chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, everyone, we are now moving on to the last agenda item for tonight. We have an executive session. Member Wing, since you're online, we had the conversation earlier tonight, but we have 5 members present here today for this. So I move to go into executive session tonight, an executive session pursuant to CRS 24-64024A, lease or transfer of real property interest regarding Civic Center redevelopment with direction to negotiators. Present at the executive session are the following persons: Mayor Othaniel Sierra, Mayor Pro Tem Stephen Ward, Councilmember Rita Russell, Joe Anderson, Jim Woodward, City Manager Sean Lewis, Deputy City Attorney Vicky McDermott, Director of Community Development Brad Power, Redevelopment Manager Dan Porumba, Elizabeth Lee, and Mark Tompkins of Stray Advisory Services. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Can we please vote?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Wink,
Aye.
Councilmember Woodward,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 6 ayes.
Thank you. We will now exit this meeting and reconvene in the community room. We're all back. All right, everyone, the time is now 7:38 and the executive session has been concluded. Present at the executive sessions were the following persons: Mayor Othaniel Sierra, Mayor Pro Tem Stephen Ward, council members Rita Russell, Joe Anderson, and Jim Woodward, City Manager Sean Lewis, Deputy City Attorney Vicky McDermott, Director of Community Development Brad Power, Redevelopment Manager Dan Parumba, Elizabeth Lee, and Mark Tompkins of Stray Advisory Services. I move to close the executive session. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Can we please vote?
Councilmember Anderson,
Aye.
Councilmember Noonenkamp, Councilmember Russell,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ward,
Aye.
Councilmember Wink, Councilmember Woodward,
Yes.
Mayor Sierra. Let the record,
Aye.
sorry, let the record show 6 ayes.
5 ayes. Perfect. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. All right, everyone, that finishes up the executive session. We're now moving on to reports from boards and commissions. Anybody have anything to add? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you. I have reports from 2 boards and commissions. First of all, the last NERP board meeting, we just discussed financial positions, which we always do, but that board decided they wanted to come back to in-person meetings, and because there were technical difficulties, and so it just makes that easier. So that board wants to come back to in person. And then the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting met last Wednesday. They too would like to go back to in-person meetings. And so, City Manager, is there a meeting room here? We were always meeting here at City Hall for the 3rd Wednesday of the month. Would there be a room available for Code Enforcement Advisory Committee?
Yes, we can make that happen.
Okay, thank you. So those are the 2 major updates. The main thing we talked about at that meeting, at the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee meeting, was the fee, for, just a second. Title 6, Chapter 5, Section 652 of the Inglewood Municipal Code, establishing property reinspection fees. And so there was a vote on that. I still have some questions, so when it comes back to council, we can address those issues. So those are the 2 things that I had. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that update, Member Russell. Anyone else? All right. Go ahead, Member Anderson.
I'll just give a quick update from Water and Sewer Board and the Sustainability Commission from a couple weeks ago. I believe Water and Sewer Board, we actually have several of the items that we discussed at that meeting, we've already voted on as council, so nothing new there. And then the Sustainability Commission ended up without a quorum, so we did not have our regular meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Member Anderson. I was gonna say, yeah, Water and Sewer Board, you covered. ETAC did not meet did not meet on the 11th, whatever the second Thursday was. So it looks like we won't have a meeting until June. All right, anyone else? If not, I can move over to council members' choice. Anyone got anything? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you. The only thing that I have, and thank you, City Manager, for sending an email about the leaks on Dartmouth, because every time we drive by that, my husband brings that up. Those are still leaking, so I appreciate that. I've had some complaints from people in different districts. I did contact the person that called me the other day about the leak down at, it's in southwest Inglewood, was it Irving and Tufts? They were never notified. There were no door hangers on the door before the water got shut off the first time, and there were no hangers on the door. The only reason they knew that it was going to be shut off is because somebody went out and talked to the workers that were there. So, and then there've been other areas where the water gets shut off. Also, is it standard process for like contractors to work on Sunday? I think the frustration was people were in the shower, people were doing laundry, and the water gets shut off without any notification.
May I address that, Member Russell?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, we have had, since we started this valve project, we have had multiple times which we were not able to notify residents because our contractor was on site following the specs of their contract, exercising the valves, replacing when necessary, and a valve will break into pieces. We have come across valves that are literally balls of rusted metal because they have not been exercised, they have not been maintained. This is the problem with a water system that wasn't reinvested in for 20, 30 years. So we are doing that now, and our contractor is rapidly identifying those valves that are problem valves. But when those break on the spot, we have to immediately shut off water to a specific area, geographic area, using valves that do work and hope that those work. And we cannot, be notifying people as we're shutting water off. We're doing it as soon as those shutoffs take place. When the first week of that contract, we identified that our contractor was not meeting our expectations with regard to notifying residents. So I appreciate that you have been an advocate for certainly people in the area of town that you live in where the work is most prominent. And we are, notifying those folks with door hangers. But you're right, sometimes it's after the fact. I was informed today is that most people have not been shut off as much as they've been throttled down. So the pressure goes much lower because we're trying to repair the valve while keep maintaining some pressure on the system. But we are really working hard with our contractor to keep some pressure in the lines as opposed to a complete shut off. But in cases for what we hope is very short periods, we are having to, shut water off in many cases, but we're trying to get the word out as soon as those things happen. But again, had we been doing this for the last 20, 30 years on a regular basis and had a crew that could do this, had the funding to replace these valves, we would not be having this problem. So our residents should continue to expect issues as we work through, this very challenging process of replacing valves that are basically useless.
So can the city notify, just send out that over the next however long it's going to be, expect there could be sudden shut-offs? Because some people have been calling in to utilities and then nobody answers the phone there either. And so I just think that we need to do that. Is this going to could it end up costing us substantially more than what we approved because we're having to replace a lot more valves than we originally intended?
I think from our original estimation, we knew that there were many valves that were bad, but I'll check with the director and the financial team and utilities to determine that because that's a good question. In response to your question about notification, I think you're getting at what we're realizing is that we need something more widespread in order to inform residents that they need to expect issues over the next month or so as we're finishing up this project, because there will be additional people that are either throttled down or shut down for periods. But to your question about working on the weekends, the reason why we're working on the weekends and our contractor as well as our staff is because we want to make sure that these shutoffs and the impact to residents is as short as possible. So we're working, almost every day of the week to resolve problems as soon as we find them. So instead of ending work at Friday at 5 o'clock, we're going to try to keep working on Saturday and Sunday so that the people that were shut off on Friday, have water on Saturday.
Well, right, and I understand that, but I also think sometimes, now, for problems that occurred on Friday, I do understand that. But to start a new problem, there's more people at home on the weekends probably than during the week. So I know it's a difficult thing. I appreciate that, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Member Russell, because I do like that idea in terms of schedule, or at least if we know which valves are to be scheduled for a certain week, maybe provide proactive notification that way. Obviously, we could talk about it at a later point, City Manager Lewis, but I do think that we need to get the word out. Anyone else with council members' request tonight? See none, going on to City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few updates. First of all, we're happy that we've gotten 4 Youth Advisory Council applications. We still are hoping to get some more, but obviously that's not enough to have a full slate in that board when you all go into interviews, but we do think it's enough to kind of have the pilot project that you all authorize for that. So you'll see those applications. On Thursday, members of the Fire Marshal, members of the command staff at EPD, and I and Deputy City Manager Dodd will be meeting with Denver Fire. And so I would welcome your feedback if you've heard any information from your constituents about any concerns, questions that they may have about Denver Fire or our paramedic and EMS services that are coordinated through that contract with Denver Health. I would welcome that feedback before Thursday so that we can bring those up. We have, as staff, have not heard a lot of feedback, but we'll pass that along if you have that. Also, are happy to report that the staff committee for the CIP, that you all authorized the staff process, well, the whole process for revamping CIPs and how we prioritize those. The staff meeting was held on the 15th of this month, and we were able to get the prioritization to our boards and commissions. And so hopefully that will be helpful to them and helpful to you when that comes back with all of the different inputs from the process. Also, just wanted to let council know, if you didn't get a text today with regard to a Parks and Recreation priorities survey, that went out to, I believe, about 10,000 residents today by cell phone. And we're hoping to have that feedback to you all as soon as possible. That was pretty fast. A couple of our last year when we did a similar survey on alternate policing and streets. Just policing and streets, I should say. And so if you get questions about from constituents wondering if that's legitimate, that is very much a City of Inglewood project that we are contracting with Magellan Strategies to really figure out what priorities between our recreation facilities and our park facilities are most important to our public. And then last but not least, next to last but not least, we had a good meeting with Mile High Flood District last week on Thursday. That was really to talk about that grate at Little Dry Creek Plaza and how it's functioning, or in our opinion, not functioning well. And so we really was a brainstorming session. We do hope to bring back some alternatives for council and staff to consider as we move towards a solution. Probably, it looks like we're leaning towards modifying the device where it can be opened when rains are expected, so that things can flow freely through it, and then close back when it's just at normal creek flows. Because the concern, the reason that grate was put on after the pond went away, was that people couldn't get into the large, I think it's about 8-foot channel, and couldn't camp in the channel, et cetera, when there was a pond in front of it. Now that the pond is gone, it's just a low flow, Little Dry Creek. We had to put something there. Mile High Flood District had to put something there to keep people out. But unfortunately, it's just not working in storm events. So we're looking at the option of something that can open and close to allow that water to go through. Last but not least, I'm really proud of our library staff who last week won a Chamber of Commerce Award for innovation and sustainability. That was basically a People's Choice Award. There were a lot of really good businesses and organizations that were nominated for that award, and our library for all of the great work that they did to keep patrons safe, to propose increased safety and security in the library, and to really overcome the challenges of the meth meth contamination. The Chamber of Commerce Board and the members of the chamber who voted on that did award them the Chamber's Award for Innovation and Sustainability. So I want to congratulate all of our amazing library staff members, our library director, Beth, Christina, and the rest of the Parks, Rec, Library, and Golf Department. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment, and congratulations to the library, and also congratulations to the new chamber president, Sonora Lesage. So, good night overall. All right, and with that, everyone, we are off next week, so we'll see you in 2 Mondays. Everyone, have a good evening. This meeting is adjourned.